There's like these two extremes. And what we want to talk about today is kind of being in that middle space of being present and being curious and finding new environments to go into and
Mm,
finding new ways to communicate with them at this stage in their life.
yeah, because I think that's the main message that we wanted to get across today is that first off, if that's you, parents, there is absolutely hope. Things are going to get better. You and your child are going to have an incredible relationship, especially if you learn how to evolve with your child. Welcome to the Extraordinary Purpose Podcast, where we explore some of the truly difficult questions and challenges that parents and their families face every day. Whether it's the sometimes painful process of parenting teens and young adults, navigating relationships with your partner and children, or you discovering your purpose and relationship with yourself, we will bring heartfelt and vulnerable conversations to the table to support and empower you. Our mission is to help you create a lifestyle full of love, passion, adventure, and influence. Here we go. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Extraordinary Purpose Podcast. I'm laughing because this is take two. I just completely messed up the first take.
He
Erin gets,
sounded like he was like a radio DJ from back in the 80s. Whoever's out there, thanks for tuning in.
it sounded amazing, and they're going to be regretful that they missed that version. Hey, how you doing, everybody? It's good to be back with you. Erin, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I'm settling into my day.
Same here, and
Yeah.
we're both excited to be here because we get the opportunity to talk to people like you, the audience, every single day. And that's absolutely true. We talk to you, but we also talk to your kids, teens and young adults. And so we have these incredible conversations. And from those conversations, Erin, we learn a lot, don't we?
We do.
We learn about what's working, but we also, of course, learn about what's not working. That might be the purpose of a lot of the conversations. And the reason that I start with that is because something that we often hear from parents every day, and by the way, when we share these things, Erin and I feel your pain because always remember, we have 4 teenagers
Hmm.
between the two of us. And so we feel your pain. But one of the biggest things, Erin, that I know we hear every day is that my relationship with our child has changed. The communication with my child has changed. They're not
Hmm.
opening up to me the way that they used to. We don't have that connection that we used to.
Yeah.
And boy, does that hurt. And boy, can we feel that pain when you share that with us, right, Erin?
Yeah, 100%. I've been in it myself lately. Just, my son's 19 now and has a very serious girlfriend, and he
Yeah.
works a lot. And it's been a busy summer up until now. We've been talking about that pretty constantly on this podcast. We've had a lot going on that's kept everyone really busy. And I have felt very disconnected from him. And it's easy to take it personal. I think I did Instagram posts on this week. It's just easy to take it personal. It's easy to let
Yeah.
those resentments build up. You start ruminating, you start building up stories in your mind about why you're disconnected and why they
What's
don't want
going
to
on?
talk to you. Like, what did I say? What did I
Yeah.
do? So yeah, we get it. And yes, and we, hear from parents that are like, help, like SOS, I need help. I want to
Right.
have that connection with my child again. I just said to Chris the other day, like, nobody tells you how this is going to go down.
No.
When you're pregnant, and I can understand why you're not going to go tell a pregnant woman, like, oh, you just wait till they turn 18 or they become young adults. But you are a part of this child's life, knowing everything about them, being
Yeah.
there for them, understanding every aspect of their day, being part of their decision making. And then all of a sudden, like overnight, you're on the outs.
Yeah.
You are on the outside and they're in there doing their thing, making decisions as they should be. But it's challenging for parents for
Yeah.
sure.
It is quite the change. And I know it's painful. Look, there's no other word to describe it. It's painful. And Erin and I have both gone through that. All of our kids are now getting older. You're right, Erin. Like when they're babies and when they're kids and they're tweens even, like
Hmm.
they're our best friends. They share everything with us. They do almost everything with us. We're with them or around them almost 24/7. And so you get used to that version of them. You get used to that particular lifestyle as a parent. And then when they get a little bit older, and I'm not sure, it's probably a little bit different with girls compared to boys, because my son William, who is 14, same age as Skylar,
Hmm.
who is Aaron's daughter. I think Skylar probably got to that point a little bit faster, but they just get to that point where they start going into their own world.
where I really found that defining cutoff is, I think it's like almost when they start driving.
Interesting.
Because like I still, Skylar's very active in volleyball and friends, and I'm driving her all over the place all the time. So
Yeah.
that time in the car with your kiddos is like so precious. So parents, if
Yeah.
you don't have like an older young adult yet, don't take for granted
Absolutely don't.
getting the opportunity. And I know sometimes it feels like, oh my God, I have to drive them somewhere again. You
Hmm.
get to drive them somewhere again because you get to keep having those conversations with them.
Yeah.
So you're still in their world a little bit then. But I know what you're saying. Is Skylar up in her room more? Yes. Is she more, she's veering from wanting to hang out with Chris and I to wanting to be with her friends more often?
Yeah, so it definitely starts to shift. And,
Yeah.
it feels overnight, but it's not overnight. And I think it's one of those things where it's just something that as parents, it's something for us to work on. They're going to go through this process with or without us. Now, we would much prefer that it be with us. And I think that's why we're here having this conversation today is, the relationship does change. The way that we just described the way things were are not the way that things are moving forward. They're getting older, they're becoming more autonomous and independent, whatever words you want to use to describe them, going off on their own, making their own friends, doing their own things in their own sports, in their own world, their own interests. And we're not always going to be a part of that. But there are ways for us to evolve our relationship with them. There's ways for us to change the way that we communicate with them so that they don't close off.
Yeah, because two things tend to happen, we've noticed, is that either parents tend to, they don't know what to do, so they just shut down emotionally as well,
Yes.
because this can trigger a lot of our own insecurities and, a lot of our own like childhood insecurities and traumas and things like that. So when our kids shift like this, we can shut down, just do the same thing to them. And then there's just this wall between us. Or then you create the hovering parent who's trying to be overly involved in forcing that openness and forcing that relationship of communication. And then your kid's absolutely going to shut you out. So there's like these two extremes. And what we want to talk about today is kind of being in that middle space of being present and being curious and finding new environments to go into and
Mm,
finding new ways to communicate with them at this stage in their life.
yeah. Because I think that's the main message that we wanted to get across today is that first off, if that's you, parents, there is absolutely hope. Things are going to get better. You and your child are going to have an incredible relationship, especially if you learn how to evolve with your child. And that's really what this is about because, parent, you have an exciting future to look forward to as well. And by the way, the more that you align with those parts of yourself and those really important things in your life, you're going to be able to show up better for your young adult. And that's a good thing to always remember.
Hmm.
But Erin's right. Like, one of the most important things is just to understand that, okay, it's time for us parents to change too, for us to evolve too. Erin, do you mind if I share an example?
No, not at all.
I think the first thing that kind of comes to mind for me is my son Ben. A year ago, he graduated high school. And for those of you who don't know Ben or haven't heard me talk about Ben, Ben's very shy. He's an introvert. He's had a lot of social challenges in his life. He, however, is one of the most amazing young people that you're ever going to meet. So quirky. He's got a wonderful personality, a wonderful smile. He's incredibly
Creative.
creative, also smart, but he keeps a lot of that inside of him. And he's got a lot of thoughts and a lot of feelings. And to be also honest, a lot of challenges. He's been really trying to figure out who he is and what he wants to do in this world and find his place in the world, which, by the way, that doesn't make Ben unique. But Ben chose to take a gap year out of high school because he was going through some of these struggles, I think. And he didn't feel ready to go to college. I think mainly because he didn't have the confidence. He didn't know enough about himself to know, hey, how am I going to make this work? Ben could have went and gotten good grades, but the one thing that Erin and I have learned from working with so many parents and young adults in our own situations is that's not what it's all about. A lot of happiness in life is finding yourself and finding your people and finding your things. And that's what Ben wanted a little bit of time. And the reason I share that is because when he started the gap year, it was very painful for me. It was very hard for us parent Erin too,
Mhm.
because she's right there with me. And so he wanted a lot of time to himself. And that scared me. And that was hard for me to be not with him all the time because him and I, like so many parents, we spent so much great time together. You know, we were so incredibly close. We took so many trips and we would always go to the record store. We would always listen to music every single week. And then one day, like literally all of that stopped. And I can't tell you the mourning process that I went through, but I did because something inside of me told me that Ben needed this, you know, that he was going to come out on the other side okay. And so I took a step back. I was still there for him. Even though I was struggling with it, I was still there for him. I still checked in with him all the time. Saw him a little bit, but I'll be honest, like we didn't see him as much as we normally did. There would be long gaps where Ben was alone, working on himself and figuring things out, and I didn't know what really was going on. And then I don't know when exactly it happened, but Ben started reaching out to me again. I don't know if he just had figured some things out or whatever happened, but he started reaching out again. He started talking to me. It was different than it used to be because he's much more of an adult now. But he started reaching out to me again. And he decided, because he had not gotten his driver's license up until that point in time, once again, because he didn't have the confidence and maybe he didn't feel like he needed it at that point in time. But regardless, he decided, you know what, I'm going to get my driver's license. I want to drive before I go back to school. Like he had a plan and he wanted me to help him with that plan. And that was my time to step back into the picture and be there for him and just help him take some of those steps. You know, I wasn't ever trying to control him or to make him do anything. I think that was the hard part of parenting during that stage. But man, have I enjoyed these last, I don't know, 3 or 4 months?
About 3 or 4 months,
3 or 4 months where he's been there. He comes over for dinners. We've taken trips together now. I drive with him every single day. So we're talking every single day.
yeah.
And it has been such an incredible experience. And so I don't know exactly what the message there is, except for I think some of the common variables that were, it required a lot of patience on my part. It required letting go of this need to be in the picture and to control him and to make him do things.
Or to get inside of his head all the time.
Yeah.
I sat back and just was very inspired by Chris because I'm the opposite kind of parent, although, my kids do live with us full time and the mom. And so I think that puts me in a different place, but I'm constantly talking to Chris. I need to understand, like, what's River thinking about? What's he going through?
Yeah.
How do I change this? How do I do that? And Chris really just sat back with so much patience. And I knew even more than he let me in on that it was hard for him. And I think he cried a few times. He was
Yeah.
very worried about Ben and just hurt that, Ben used to come over and listen to records all the time. And he'd come over and watch movies with Chris. And I always felt a little, not uncomfortable with Ben, but I didn't always know where to step in with him
Yeah.
and, how to sort of be around him. And now, like, I go to the movies with Ben and Chris together, and Ben's smiling all the time now, and he's laughing, and he's talking about his future, and I ask him questions, and he's real conversational. And part of that, yes, he just grew up. He's went from being that uncomfortable adolescent into kind of a young adult. But what Chris did was he gave him space to find himself. He gave him the patience. He wasn't constantly badgering him and hovering and needing to understand what was going on in his mind. And by giving him that space, Ben came out the other side, just this incredible young man now.
I think that what really comes to mind, and maybe I'm speaking out of turn here for Ben, but I think he feels safe being around us.
Yes, I
I think he
agree.
likes being around us.
Yeah.
You know, I think that when he started going off on his own for a while, he was saying no a lot. He was saying no to offers to go out to the movies, to listen to music, to spend time together, to take trips, like all these things. It was no, no, no. Pretty hard no, too, by the way. And that
I
was,
just know.
I can't tell you, and maybe you know, like just how hard that is to hear. It breaks your heart. It makes you feel like you're failing. You feel guilt. You feel all these things. And I went through all of that. We've gone through all of that. But then now I can't express how happy it is.
He's a yes man.
He's a yes man. I can't think of a time. Well, there's been a couple of times, which I appreciate that because you don't want to be yes to everything. But he says yes to coming over for dinner. He says yes to going out to the movies. We got married in Puerto Rico a couple of months ago. I thought there was never any chance of that happening, of him coming with us. And he came and he had a good time and he was our photographer.
Yeah.
He spent time with us. He spent time with our family. He was smiling. This was an entirely different version of Ben from what we had seen before.
Yeah.
I think a version, by the way, that he had worked on and that we had given him space to work on.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's been incredible to watch that transformation. And so I hope that story just really paints a picture. There's so many elements to that story that, kind of goes into what we're talking about today.
Yeah.
Part of that is, what we said, you have to evolve as a parent as well. We have to evolve as parents. We have to check in with ourselves and really get clear on how we're feeling, our own internal environment,
Right.
how we're feeling, what our thoughts are. Are we attaching things from our own childhoods to what's going on with our kiddo today? And the biggest thing I think is just, we take it personal. We make it about us often. A lot of
Hmm.
parents make it about them, that this must have something to do with me, something I did wrong. Hey, Chris is great at reminding me of that because I do that all the time. I'm like, it's
Yeah.
me. I messed them up. They're doing this because of something I did when they were 10, or,
Yeah.
not staying with their dad, or all the things that they had to go through in different phases of my life. And it's not always about us. And that's something that I realize often what I've been going through with River. I've been attaching a lot of that to things I did to hurt him. And when we went out for dinner, I went out for dinner with him and Skylar last night, just the three of us, because Chris was away with his son, William. And I realized it had nothing to do with me. It was
Hmm.
not about me at all. It's just that, he's been in his own world. He's been
Yeah.
with his girlfriend. He's been trying to figure himself out. He's been trying to get ready to switch his mindset he's kind of where Ben was last year, trying to
Yeah.
figure out what's next for him, getting the nerve to get ready to go to college and all of that. So we have to remember that it's rarely about us, and actually take this time and this opportunity to focus on ourselves again.
Yeah, and that comes down to the environment. And so we use that word environment a lot, Erin. And I
Mm.
think I think everybody has a basic idea of what that really looks like. It's the spaces we spend our time, it's who we spend our time with, but you got to also think about what's under that. What makes that really work? What creates that connection with yourself so you can start to really figure these things out? And that is, you have to like figure out, how do I break free from all the noise of the world? Okay. How do I break free from all the noise of the world that is keeping me from going through this process and connecting with myself and figuring things out? And I think the obvious one that we always talk about and we need to keep talking about, and Erin and I are probably going to be beating this drum more moving forward than ever before, but like just the impact that social media and our phones are having on us day to day, from creating that connection and feeling the way that we need to feel so that we can remember who we are and what we're capable of and what our plan for the future is and things like that.
Yeah, and it's challenging, like even just rounding up these two last night to go to dinner with me. And then I, asked, can we have a family movie night? So the agreement was just that River, Skylar, and me would go to dinner, just the three of us, because it used to just be the three of us before I met Chris. And sometimes we miss having that time together. And then I asked River if he wanted to invite his girlfriend over for the movie. But just getting them to do that and, not micromanaging who was on their phone. And I did just say, let's put our phones away while we're
Yeah.
at dinner. And they did. They were very respectful. And,
Yeah.
but I mean, I think sometimes what I'm trying to say is I think sometimes it's hard and it takes effort to just
Mm.
get to that place, just to get a family dinner out and a family movie night, but it's worth it.
Yeah.
And we got home from dinner, they both went up to their rooms, and I had to go knock on their door to say, "Hey, guys, let's go, let's watch our movie." They would have just stayed upstairs.
Well, this is the interesting part, Erin, because you and I just talked about, hey, you got to take a step back and you got to let go and you got to
Mhm.
be very accepting of what they're going through as teens and as young adults and how hard that is and how overwhelming it can be. All true, by the way. We were all there. I remember what it was like to go through that. But then also there's these moments as parents where we can play a really freaking important role. Because remember, our phones and technology and social media, they are an addiction. And it's our responsibility to help and support and provide some guidance, especially with things like that. And so Erin's right. Like when we step up as parents And we don't accept the status quo of, okay, our kids are going to be in their rooms all night or all week, or, you know what I mean? They're just always going to be doing the same thing every day. And us too, by the way, where we just finally say, you know what, enough's enough. I understand that the reason that they're up there is because they're on their phones, right? I know that in order for us to connect and in order for us to have really quality conversations, and even more importantly than that, in order for them to be grounded enough to start to feel better about themselves, we need to help them create this space where that's possible, where you, Erin, can have a conversation like you did yesterday with your kids. But that's not
Mhm.
possible if your noses are in your phones or if you're thinking about plans with your friends and you're thinking about what's happening on Snapchat, right? I'm only mentioning that because you and I have been having those conversations the last
Mhm.
few weeks. So, as parents, it's our responsibility to create these little pockets of time so that kids can start to create this connection. We can have these conversations, and maybe also they can start to notice the difference.
Yeah. I love that. And I think the key here is just continuing to check in with yourself as parents. So there's these, yes, there's moments when you want to create these experiences. You go out for dinner, you create a
Yeah.
movie night, maybe you go for a hike. And by the way, parents, it's okay for you to ask your kids to do some of the things you enjoy doing.
Yes.
I think it's great to get into their world too and just, kind of do what they want, but it's great to bring them into your world as well. Whether that's going to the gym, getting out for a hike, going to a restaurant you enjoy, watching a movie that you want to introduce them to.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And then there's just the everyday moments. Like, Chris taking Ben out driving. Like literally they go driving. It's only for about 30 or 45, but every single day they get out and they go for a drive so Ben can practice. That's gold, and those are the moments when you can just sit in silence together. You can just ask one simple question and give them space to answer and just be curious. The moments I drive around with Skylar, just watering flowers together outside, it's sometimes just those simple moments of connection. But it's up to us as parents to be in tune enough with ourselves, first of all. Always be in tune with yourself first. It's the most important thing you can do is to check yourself and see where you're at. And then you'll know what kind of experiences and opportunities of connection you want to create with your kids.
And this is the frustrating thing about being a parent, too, because there's going to be times and days where you make these efforts to have these conversations or watch a movie together or go for a walk together, and they're not going to talk. They're not going to share. But you still have to show up as that empowered, confident, patient parent. You can't judge. You can't try to control the situation. You can't get angry if it doesn't go the way that you want for it to go. God, that's so hard. Because trust me, I'm a fixer. Like I always have been. And there's always going to be that part of me that wants to fix and unfortunately control and make everybody happy. And trust me, that's one of the things that I struggle with all the time. But I will also say, for all the times that Ben and I don't talk, for example, when we go driving, then you're right. A couple times a week, we end up having an amazing conversation. A couple times ago, he really opened up to me. We were talking about music, converting into a conversation about school, and he was talking about the year ahead. He was talking about his plans, and these were all things that I wanted for him, but he was the one coming up with the idea.
Mhm.
He was the one sharing with me, Dad, yeah, I found some groups I want to join. Yeah, I'm going to go to some games. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And it just was like music to my ears because that's the one thing that we say to parents a lot is like, this has to come from them. This
Mhm.
has to be their stuff, their ideas for their own reasons. We can want whatever it is that we want for them and we want the best for them, but it can't come from us.
Yeah.
They have to come up with this themselves. They have to want this for themselves. And that's why what you said, Erin, was so important. We still take our kids to the gym. We still show up for ourselves every day and talk about our goals. We do this podcast in our house with our kids here. They see us doing these things every day. And then what happens is they come around. They don't initially express interest, but sooner or later, usually they do,
Mhm.
right? It's not an immediate thing. And then once again, that's the hard part, but eventually they do. And they do want to go to the gym and they do want to work out and they do want all these things.
Yeah.
And I love that.
I do too. I think the two main words that come to me to summarize today's conversation is patience and creating that safe space.
Yeah.
I think as parents, we need to be more patient. And we live in a culture and an environment today where we want change yesterday. We want answers now. We want transformation. We want this for us, for our kids. And we just need to slow down a little bit. And I just love the story about Ben because I think that just paints such a beautiful picture of it might take a year. Sometimes it might take what it takes for a kiddo to come around to figure out who they are, for a relationship to heal or transform, and that's okay. So we as the adults, as the parents, have to get better at checking ourselves and learning to slow down ourselves. And when we're coming up against our own uncomfortability around our relationship with our child, is to look in the mirror and
Yeah.
really check ourselves. And then the other piece is by doing that, we create a safe space. And that's what you said is Ben feels safe being with us now because we gave him that space. And it's about, when we are pressuring our kids and lecturing and telling them what we think is wrong or what we think they should do, they don't feel safe with us. They feel
Right.
pressured, they feel insecure, they feel anxious, and they feel this need to figure things out yesterday. And that's not a normal pace for a human being. So that's the message today is be curious with your kids, create moments of connection and communication with them where you can slow down together and create a safe space where they want to come to you. Ben wants to come back to Chris now every day and just be in his presence, even if they're not talking. That's a safe space.
I think sometimes we forget that they're going through a lot, whether they show that on the outside or not. Sometimes they do show that on the outside, or they don't. They show they're confident. They're still going through a lot. They have a lot to do. They have a lot to figure out. They're struggling. It's a lot to be a teenager or to be a young adult, whether you're in
Mhm.
high school or college. It's a lot. And so the best thing that we can do for parents is give them or create these opportunities for them to feel safe enough to open up. That's the main message that we wanted to get across today. Because if they feel like we can be somebody to come to, that is what is going to create that connection and create those opportunities and those experiences that I think can just be magic for all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, just too much criticism, too much lecturing doesn't work. It does not create a safe space.
That's right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in today. We hope you really enjoyed this conversation. I know that we did. This was a great one.
It's a good one.
We have so much more to talk about, so much more to do. But as we always say, the Extraordinary Purpose podcast is all about us parents. It's us parents coming together with common challenges and a common purpose and to work through these things together and to pave a path forward. And what we want for you to always to take away from these conversations is not just hope. There is a lot of hope. Okay, there's a lot to look forward to for you and your family and your kids. But also just take what we talked about today and turn it into action. Erin and I trust us. We do not want this just to be talk, right? This is something where Erin and I, we come off these conversations equally as motivated. We're like, okay,
Mhm.
we're not doing this as much as we want to either. What are the first steps? So at the minimum, we always want for you to walk away saying, what's the next small thing that I can do, or the first small thing that I can do based on the conversation that we just had with Chris and Erin? That's where it starts. Okay. And then once you take that first step, you start to see, wow, that's different. That's really what the spirit of this is we're not doing things the same old, same old.
Yeah.
We're not settling for the status quo. Okay. That just leads to more frustration and more anger and all that crap. We want things to be different. And so let's have a great week. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye, guys. Have a great week.
See you
next
soon.
time.
Bye-bye.
We are so thankful for you and your beautiful family and hope you found something inside today's episode that brought you hope, inspiration, and most importantly, a path forward. If you're interested in evolving your relationship, giving your kids the most important gift of personal growth and development, or are a mom looking to reconnect with your confidence and become empowered in all areas of your life, then schedule a discovery call with us today. Our mission is to help as many families as possible find their purpose, and that starts with you. See you in the next episode, my friends.